During the Second World War, Japan was allied with Nazi Germany, battling against the entire Europe for world domination. The war affected every aspect of the people's lifestyle. When the bombers from the enemy nation arrived, everyone hid in shelters to avoid being bombarded to death. Everyone was afraid for their lives at all times. One such day when the bombers arrived, Seita, a young Japanese boy who lives with his mother and sister, quickly buries his household valuables in the ground. He then ties his sister Setsuko around himself and bids his mother farewell. They are already late, so she asks them to hurry up as she leaves. Children and adults have different shelters, so they head to different directions. Seita grabs his father's picture before they head out. As they head outside, the skies fill with missiles. The brother and sister hide back in their house, but it's not safe to stay there. They rush outside again after a while, only to find the entire community burning. The missiles continue to fall from the sky as the enemy air force commands their skies. This time, the devastation has been unlike anything the brother and sister have ever seen, so they quickly rush off to a safer place. Seita carries Setsuko to a nearby beach where they take shelter until the enemy pilots go away. Soon the rain starts falling, mixed with smoke and dust from the sky. The black rain, a common thing during war. After a while, Setsuko starts asking about her mother. Seita assures her that everything will be alright as she was in the shelter, which can withstand even a 250-kilogram bomb. Then they decide to head towards the Twin Pines, where their mother had asked them to meet her. But then they realize that the entire town had been devastated by the bombings of today. All the houses burned down and the only building standing was the public hall. The streets are filled with burned down houses and corpses. The rubble covers the entire neighborhood. The injured are being rescued and the dead are being identified. Since all their houses have burned down, people, the ones that are alive, have gathered along the streets. Soon, a person announces that everyone requiring first aid must head to the elementary school where a camp has been built. Seita and Setsuko head to the first aid camp and the sister gets her eyes checked. Just then, one of their neighbors comes rushing. She tells Seita that his mother was injured, so he must go to meet her in the medpost building. Seita rushes there, leaving his sister behind alongside the neighbor. In the medpost, the medic in charge of the whole building hands Seita his mother's ring. He then guides Seita to his mother, who is heavily injured and has suffered many serious burn injuries. Seita has no words. He only asks if he can get some medicine for his mother's bad heart. He returns back to his sister, but doesn't tell her anything. He simply puts the ring inside her purse and asks that she never lose it. Setsuko starts throwing a tantrum to see her mother, but Seita tells her that it's too late today and they'll meet her tomorrow. The very next day, their mother gives in to her injuries and passes away. She isn't even given a proper funeral and is simply put into a pit, alongside hundreds of other bodies, and burned. The brother and sister are then taken in by distant relatives living in the Nishinomiya district. Seita still cannot find the strength to tell his sister about their mother, so he doesn't tell her anything. He hands her a box of flavored candies to keep her distracted. The next day, Seita goes to his hometown to get back the valuables he had buried. He had actually stored up various cuisines and food items in store for when the situation was unfavorable for them. Since they were now staying at their relatives, he gives all of these cuisines to them. He then tells his aunt that his mother died a few days ago in the medpost. He didn't tell her earlier because he didn't want Setsuko to know. His aunt asks him to collect his father as soon as possible. The days start to pass, and soon it appears that the relative aunt gets tired of having extra mouths to feed. She keeps pestering Seita to write to his father, even though he hasn't replied to his last letter. Even during dinner, the aunt starts to discriminate between them and her daughter. She doesn't even give them proper food, and fills their bowls with soup rather than rice. During the nighttime, the brother and sister go outside and enjoy the scenes of hundreds of fireflies flying, just like the thousands of missiles that fill up the sky every other day. One day, the sirens are heard again, and all of them rush to a nearby bomb shelter. Setsuko feels uneasy and sick in the shelter, but they manage to stay the night. The next day, they visit the beach nearby and the siblings enjoy a good swim. Seita notices rashes on Setsuko's back and uses the salt water to clean it. Their laughter fills the sky, and Seita remembers the days when life was better, back when their mother was alive and they didn't have to worry about food at all. There would always be food and drinks to spare, and life was good. He's brought back to reality by the warning sirens again. One day, their aunt tells them to sell their mother's kimono for about 15 kilograms of rice because they need to eat healthily. Setsuko is against it, but Seita allows her to go ahead with it. The aunt then takes half of their rice and gives them half of it. However, she still doesn't allow them to have a proper meal. While her husband and daughter take rice balls for lunch, she forces them to have poorly cooked porridge. She accuses them of being freeloaders and tells them that if they don't like it here, they should just go to Tokyo, to their other relatives. Disheartened, the siblings head to Tokyo next. They are hungry and have no idea of where these so-called relatives are. However, Seda manages to get a hold of the 7,000 yen left by their mother before she died from the bank. With the money, they returned back, and Seda purchases a stove, some utensils, a comb for Setsuko, and a makeshift umbrella from a farmer. After many weeks, they're able to have separate cooking space from their aunt and can have their belly full of their food. The war takes no name of stopping, and the rations supplied by the government get scarcer and scarcer every month. The sweet box that Seda gives Setsuko also starts emptying, so he fills it up with water to make sweet water for his sister. The days start getting worse, but the siblings enjoy every moment they have with each other. One night, Setsuko has a bad dream and she starts crying, so Seda takes her outside to see the fireflies again. But as they are outside, the warning sirens go off and they're forced to take shelter under a mine alongside the lake. There, they think long and hard about their lives, with their aunt who constantly troubles them, accuses them of being bad, and treats them as if they're some kind of animal. Seda knows that their aunt doesn't want them to be there, and Setsuko hates living with her aunt. He decides that they'll leave and come stay here, in the abandoned mines. So the next day, they bring all their stuff and gleefully bid goodbye to their aunt. The siblings decorate the place and even add their beds inside their mines. They go back to the same farmer from before and buy some more food supplies. A few days go by and soon their food starts running out, and they resort to hunting the frogs in the lake. That night, Setsuko can't sleep because she's scared of the dark, so Seda lets in a lot of fireflies inside their mosquito net. They light up the place and the siblings watch them in awe. Seda then tells Setsuko that everything will be fine when their father comes back. He's currently in the Japanese Navy force fighting for his country. Seda has no doubt that Japan will win the war, and soon they will reunite with their father. The night passes by with hope. The next day, Seda notices Setsuko preparing a grave for the fireflies that they had captured yesterday. She tells him that she knows their mother is also in a grave. Their aunt had told her. Seda cannot control his tears. The little girl had held on to so much grief, he can't forgive himself for not being able to stop it from happening. Seda then sits down alongside her and tells her exactly where their mother was resting. Setsuko asks him, why do fireflies have to die so soon? A question that no one can probably answer. Their supplies have started to run out, so Seda goes back to the farmer who sold him stuff. But this time, the farmer tells him that he has nothing left to sell. All the farmer can give him is a few words of encouragement to never give up. But words don't fill bellies. On their way back, an enemy aircraft forces them to dive into a field of tomatoes, and the two hungry siblings eat their fill. They also carry as much food as they can from the field. After another night of heavy black rain, the siblings spend their day outside, drying up. They look famished and sickly. Setsuko's whole body is filled with rashes, and her hair is filled with lice. She tells her brother that her stomach is not well for many days now, and the diarrhea won't go away at all. Worried for his sister's health, Seda plans to steal some sugarcane from the same field they stumbled upon yesterday. He goes there at night but is caught by the owner. Seda begs that it's for his sick sister, but the man doesn't care. Stealing crops during wartime is a heinous crime. He beats up Seda brutally and drags him to his home, where he finds the other stolen crops from yesterday. With all this evidence, he takes the boy to the police station. Standing outside amidst the fireflies, little Setsuko can do nothing but cry out her brother's name as he's taken away. Thankfully, the officer is a kind man who doesn't hurt him. He scolds the man for hitting a young boy like that. He scares the man off and lets Seda go. Outside, Setsuko is waiting for him. She rushes to hug him. Seda, again, cannot control his tears. He's failed to help his sister. Even when Setsuko is so sickly, she asks Seda to go to the hospital if he's badly hurt. This makes the boy even sadder. He feels they have no one but themselves in the world. He hugs his sister and carries her back to their homes. From the next day, when the enemies come, instead of hiding in the shelter, Seda starts stealing food and goods from other people's houses. When the missiles fall from the sky, he doesn't cower. He thanks them for giving him what he needs. One day, he returns from trying to sell these stolen kimonos. He finds his sister passed out in the fields nearby. He quickly takes her to the hospital, She's so thin that her skin has met her ribs, and rashes cover all of her body. The doctor tells Seda that it's malnutrition, and she needs a good food to be healthier. Seda wants the doctor to give her a shot, but there's no shot for malnutrition. Their money and resources have started to run out, and Seda can't do anything to give his sister better food. When they return, he sees a man cutting ice, and remembers Setsuko wanting an ice cream. Below the man's cart, he finds the chunks of ice that have fallen, and he feeds her, telling her it's ice cream. Seda decides to go back to the bank to retrieve whatever they have left. He leaves Setsuko with some food and goes to Tokyo. While in line for the bank, he hears some men talking about the war being over. Japan had lost after a full surrender. All their ships had been sunk, and all their planes had been shot down. Seda cannot believe it. This meant that his father, too, had been killed. He tries to calm himself and returns back to his sister. He returns with rice, chicken, eggs, and some watermelons. By now, Setsuko is only partially conscious of what's happening. She's been passing out on a regular basis due to the lack of food. That night, a massive typhoon overtakes the whole area, and the sound of thunder wakes Seda up. He sees that his sister is no more. She lies there lifeless beside him. He doesn't cry and simply hugs her the whole night. The next day, he uses the remaining money to buy proper funeral items and takes proper instruction from a local man about the funeral. The weather is great that day. There are no enemy aircraft in the skies, no dust, and fire in the streets. And after a long while, laughter can be heard around the community. Seda walks to the top of a lonely hill and places his sister in the coffin he bought. He remembers the fond memories they had. He remembers her laughter and her love for him. He then cremates the body and sits alongside it until night falls, and the fireflies are back again. He places Setsuko's ashes in the candy box and never went back to the mine again. September 21st, 1945. On a street filled with people, an orphan, like many others around him, passes away from hunger, or from the lack of hope. It's Seda. His soul watches his lifeless body, but he's happy because he can finally reunite with his sister. The siblings then reunite in a field full of fireflies. They take the train and visit all the important days of their lives. Fireflies are meant to be happy. Fireflies are meant to be free. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.